Where there actually is a set of breadcrumbs, however, is in a set of tweets and letters sent from former President Trump to several chairs, to the chair of the House Judiciary Committee that we see here. In fact, according to New York Times article, which I'd like to present to the record today, President Trump's attorney wrote to the Judiciary Committee chairman urging him to investigate what he called, quote, a rogue local district attorney. And after that New York DA convened a grand jury that ultimately indicted Donald Trump, Chairman Jordan complied with that letter. Shortly after President Trump's attorney sent that letter to the committee, which is highly unusual, a very highly unusual act. And in fact, after that, on March 20th, Chairman Jordan, together with the Committee on House Administration, Chairman Brian Steele, as well as the chairman of this committee, wrote to District Attorney Bragg and then demanded a sweeping series of documents, including communications between the DA's office and the Department of Justice, also highly unusual. In fact, on his Truth Social account later on, Donald Trump claimed that the U.S. attorney investigating Hunter Biden, a U.S. attorney, by the way, that Donald Trump appointed, was, quote, a coward. And then in that, he then urged that maybe the presiding judge will have the courage and intellect to break up this, quote, cesspool of crime. Curiously, just a few days after this tweet, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith, sent a letter to U.S. Attorney David Weiss and Attorney General Merrick Garland, who are implicated in this hearing, explicitly asking them to place the whistleblower testimony from the committee's depositions into the court record, which were addressed during the chairman's opening statements, before Hunter Biden's plea hearing at the end of the month. And when we talk about political influence, we are not here today, unfortunately, because the facts have brought us here. We are here today because Donald Trump is exerting an influence campaign in Congress when he is no longer president of the United States. In addition to that, if we want to talk about charges that have been dismissed, and if we do want to follow the evidence, perhaps we should discuss Ivanka Trump's investigation who was close to being charged with felony fraud after Donald Trump's personal attorney provided political contributions to the local DA. Those charges were dismissed, and ultimately we saw that DA Vance, President Trump's attorney, provided over $50,000 in political contributions after the case was dismissed. So when we talk about political contributions, I would hope, if we are following the evidence, that we are willing, that this committee, if this committee is going to go there, that they be willing to open investigations into the dismissal of charges against Ivanka Trump. And, by the way, if the gentlelady from Georgia wanted to follow evidence, we should also take a look at, hypothetically, a case where sex trafficking charges against a 17-year-old girl potentially...
The gentlelady's time's expired.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Chair now recognizes.
My colleagues on the other side of the aisle have shredded all their credibility in this committee. They simply grasp at straws that do not exist. In this Congress so far, we've held more hearings on gas stoves than gun violence and culture wars than kitchen table issues. So let's talk about the real two-tier justice system, the one in which big corporations pollute the air we breathe and the big banks cause meltdowns with their negligence, and not one person is held criminally liable.
This may appear to be a very silly question, but if what we've just seen, if that was in a civil or criminal case, would it not be the situation that let's say, for example, COMER is leading the case for the prosecution with his witnesses, whistleblowers? Would the case not have collapsed? That's question number one. And if you have any level of legal knowledge, even if you can just give me some legal advice, if you're preparing for a case, it can be civil or criminal, it doesn't really matter, do you brief your witnesses? If you've got a situation, let's say it's a civil situation where you've got a whistleblower or a political hearing, do you brief your witnesses? Do you kind of get the whistleblowers up to speed? Or would you just say, watch Fox News, listen to any conspiracy theories, go on Twitter, find some people that are going yada, yada, yada with garbage, and yes, echo chamber what they've had to say? I'm just asking that question because having watched that, again, I've said this previously, the people responsible for doing the political advertising for the Democratic Party and the Biden campaign for 2024, put your feet up. Literally, the Republican Party and all their shenanigans and circuses are doing all of it for you. Just edit it together because that calamity.
As unfortunately our colleagues across the aisle failed to do so with some of the previous witnesses that they called. And so, Mr. Ziegler and Mr. Shapley, I'm hoping that these are very simple, very straightforward questions, so I'd like to ask that you answer them with a yes or no answer. Mr. Shapley, are you now or have you ever acted as an unregistered foreign agent for the Chinese government or for any other government?
No.
And Mr. Ziegler, are you now or have you ever acted as an unregistered or registered foreign agent?
No.
And Mr. Shapley, have you ever participated in illegal arms trafficking?
No, I have not.
And Mr. Ziegler, how about yourself?
I have not.
And finally, Mr. Shapley, have you ever been indicted of a crime, lied to investigators while under oath, or run from the law?
No, I have not.
And Mr. Ziegler, same question to you. Have you ever been indicted, lied to investigators, or run from the law?
I have not.
Thank you for answering those questions. Obviously, it would seem strange to have to ask these clarifying questions, but given the majority's track record in calling witnesses on this matter, not to mention their own presidential candidate, it seemed necessary to clarify for our American folks who are listening today.
And that optics were a driving factor in the decision on whether to execute a search warrant. Optics? Have you ever run into that, Mr. Shapley?
I have not, no.
Have you, Mr.
And I truly could not agree more with our witness, Mr. Shapley, that there should not be a two-tiered system of justice for those who are powerful and those who are wealthy and those who are not. But that is not actually what this hearing is about here today, because it's clear that this is yet another attempt by the majority to turn this committee into another in-kind donation to the Trump campaign. Now, this follows on an earlier attempt this past month to undermine the FBI with a controversial markup, which thankfully did not occur, the very same day that Donald Trump was indicted under those 37 counts. In fact, if you look across the aisle, we have 13 members who have already endorsed Donald Trump. And now here we are trying to distract the American people once more, even though it was a political appointee appointed by Donald Trump, who was at the helm of this effort when the issues we are discussing today occurred. And yet we're using the committee's resources to advance this agenda. But I think it's important that the American people actually understand that the real criminal and the actual threat to our democratic institutions is Donald Trump, the man found legally liable for sexual abuse, the man who refused to return classified documents to the government, the man who was inciting an insurrection that led to the deaths of 5 people and threatened the lives of people in this very room, and who threatened the very foundation of our democracy. So I find it hard to believe that members who witnessed the insurrection, who have witnessed these criminal indictments, continue to stand here today with Donald Trump and prop him up using committee resources. And I urge my colleagues to take a hard look in the mirror and to really reflect on what our oath of office means. And with that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Chair now.
But today's hearing is like most of the majority's investigations and hearings. A lot of allegations, zero proof, no receipts, but apparently some dick pics. Now, at a certain point, the American people will need some actual evidence. Actual evidence. But we've seen absolutely none. So this is, of course, in stark contrast to the Trump crime family. The majority conveniently glazes over the Trump's family's foreign dealings. The Trump family, who, of course, were actually appointed to White House senior jobs. from Ivanka's Chinese trademarks to Jared's Qatari real estate bailout, and $2 billion in Saudi private equity money. So where's that investigation? They were actually in the White House. And I think Chris Christie, one of the Republicans running for president, said it best, of course, in the former governor. This is his quote, not mine. "The grift from the family is breathtaking. It's breathtaking. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner walk out of the White House and months later get $2 billion from the Saudis." Continue. You think it's because it's some kind of investigative genius or investing genius? Or is it because he was sitting next to the President of the United States for 4 years and doing favors for the Saudis? Now, these are quotes from a man who's known Trump and the Kushners for years. These people are in the White House every day, formally making policy, unlike Hunter Biden. What's next in the switch hunt? This man, Gal Luft. The Republicans were so desperate just last week to find someone who could tell them what they wanted to hear that they promoted and collaborated with a Chinese spy trying to influence U.S. policy while selling weapons to Iran and Libya. So why is the so-called whistleblower missing? We don't know. Skipped his bail, being searched upon after being arrested. Now he's so desperate to cling to this narrative that they're defending this alleged crook. The fugitive? Do we know where he is? What vetting does the majority do to make sure that there aren't targets of foreign influence on this committee? These are the real questions that we need answers to.
If you're willing to yield, I'll answer that question.
Sure, I just want my time.
I've never met Gal Luft in my life. All I know is he was getting money from the same company that the Bidens were getting money from, CEFC. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking forward to also if anyone from the committee or any committee members or committee staff had any contact with who is now obviously a Chinese spy, which you and the committee have been hyping up for weeks.
Well, is the president's son a Chinese spy? They took money from the only difference is the president's son took a hell of a lot more money than Gal Luft did.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, you were the one hyping up a Chinese spy and arms dealer for weeks. This is just another example.
Who cares if they had
bringing it
money
up.
from the same company?
So just to finish up my time, let me just say that it's clear to me that this majority will stop at nothing to try to impeach President Biden, the Attorney General, Secretary Mayorkas, and the list goes on and on. This is just another witch hunt that the majority continues to do week after week. The majority is trying to interfere in ongoing legal proceedings to cause chaos and to try to reelect Donald Trump, who obviously is pulling this extremist agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we begin, I would like to let the committee and everyone watching at home that parental discretion is advised. I would also like to remind everyone that on our Oversight Committee, we provide oversight into all parts of the federal government, including their Department of Justice and their willingness to prosecute and their unwillingness to prosecute, and whether it's politically motivated. I would also like to say that when evidence and proof of a crime is presented, no prosecution should be denied, no matter who the person is. To the whistleblowers today, I thank both of you for your courage to come to the committee today and your commitment to truth. I have great respect for it, so thank you. I would like to talk with you both about Hunter Biden and his tax write-offs with his law firm, Owasco. I would like to ask Mr. Ziegler, when did you start your investigation? In your testimony, it was November 2018. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. During your testimony with the House Ways and Means Committee, you stated that through bank records, you identified Hunter Biden was paying prostitutes related to a potential prostitution ring. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes, that's correct.
I've also reviewed those same bank reports, commonly referred to as SARS, Suspicious Activity Reports, and I'm very troubled by them. We read thousands of them in the Treasury. This particular excerpt from a SARS report talks about human trafficking and in regards to Hunter Biden and Owasco and payments he was making. What's even more troubling to me is that the Department of Justice has brought no charges against Hunter Biden that will vindicate the rights of these women who are clearly victims under the law. I would like to talk about in your prior testimony, you stated that the prosecutorial team was investigating violations of the Mann Act. Is that correct, Mr. Ziegler?
That is correct.
Regarding the Mann Act, if a person is transported across state lines for sexual activity, such as prostitution, that could be a violation of a federal law. Is that correct?
I actually recently looked at the federal law regarding Mann Act, and I believe that that is correct, but I would refer you to the DOJ manual.
Thank you. I would like to present this to the committee. This is showing Hunter Biden paying for a victim's United flight from LA to Dulles. This was I believe this is a violation of the Mann Act. This is Hunter Biden's, this is his proof that he bought the ticket. He bought it for this woman right here. He flew her from Los Angeles to Washington on June 14th, flew her back to Los Angeles, California on June 15th of 2018. And I would like to point out that if he was purchasing her a plane ticket for sex and traveling across state lines, do you believe that to be a violation of the Mann Act, Mr. Ziegler?
So I can talk to specifically what's in my transcript regarding the Mann Act. So I know we were compiling the information together.
Yes, but Mr. Ziegler, as the law states, by the code of the law, it states traveling, paying someone to go across state lines is prostitution. It's a violation of the Mann Act. Let me just move on just one more second here. So when Hunter Biden paid for this woman to do this with him, to travel across state lines from California to Washington, D.C. on June 15th, this is a violation of the Mann Act. This was prostitution. Let me continue. Did Hunter Biden also use his company, Owasco PC, to pay prostitutes?
Can you hold on one second?
Chairman?
Yeah, we'll give you this additional time back.
Thank you.
That was.
So regarding Mann Act violations, what we can do is, given by the statute, we can turn those over to the House Ways and Means Committee, and then we can they can decide to vote to turn them over to you regarding Mann Act.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Ziegler. So talking about Hunter Biden using his company, Owasco PC, to pay prostitutes, this is also a suspicious activity report showing that victim one, the woman that was paid for prostitution, that traveled from California to Washington, D.C., paid for by Hunter Biden. This is an excerpt from a SARS report that we've read in the Treasury, and I think you all have looked at these too, showing that victim one was supposedly an employee of Owasco. But I would like to point out, this is not really what most paralegals do for law firms. And it's very serious that Hunter Biden was paying this woman through his law firm and then writing it off as business tax exemptions. Most people write off, write off things for their taxes through their businesses, like a meal or say office supplies. But can you confirm for me that Hunter Biden had written off payments to prostitutes through his law firm, Owasco?
I appreciate the question given by the statute. I'm limited in my testimony today, and I respectfully would need to turn those records over to the House Ways and Means Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ziegler. One last question. You referred to one of the assistants as West Coast assistant. I believe this is the West Coast assistant. Could you agree with that?
So I can tell you that there were deductions for what we believe to be escorts, and then that $10,000 golf club membership. Yes, that was not a golf club membership. That was for a sex club payment.
That was for a sex club payment. Payments such as this from Hunter Biden to prostitutes. Also, Mr. Shapley.
Come on.
Mr. Chairman, we're 1 minute and 53 seconds over. As long as Ms. Ocasio-Cortez can get equal time, she can keep going.
I will let Ms. Green wrap up 5 seconds, and then I'll give Mr. Mafume additional time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shapley, you started an investigation into Hunter Biden, codenamed Sportsman, which opened in November of 2018. It was an offshoot of an investigation the IRS was conducting into a foreign-based amateur online pornography platform. This is evidence of Hunter Biden
Chairman,
making
over time,
sex
and
tape.
it's
Excuse me, this is my time.
unbecoming of
Making
this
pornography.
Should we be displaying this, Mr. Chairman, in the committee?
Gentle lady's time's expired and went 2.5 minutes over.
Chairman,
If
can I
Mr.
have a point of
Bufume
order?
wants the 2.5 minutes, he can have it. If he wants to yield some to Ms. Ocasio-Cortez when she goes, she can have it. We'll make it right. 2.5 minutes. You all
Mr.
have an
Chairman.
extra 2.5 minutes. Chair recognizes Mr.
Mr.
Bufume
Chairman,
for
point
5
of order.
minutes.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Is that
State
here?
your point.
My understanding is that this committee was provided the suspicious activity reports on the condition that it not publicize them for the reason that they are not actually even allegations, much less evidence of anything. And my colleague from Georgia has now just revealed it publicly.
That is a good point. However, that suspicious activity report has been public for years. That suspicious activity report was on the internet long before I became chairman of this committee. So that particular suspicious activity report has already been publicized.
Thank you for that clarification. She had said it was part of the thousands she reviewed, but I appreciate the clarification.
Public and able that we all reviewed in the Treasury.
Chair's reclaim time. Chair recognizes Mr. Bufume for 5 minutes, and if you want more time, we'll work with you.